probably not making it. If you saw, doing what you do, knowing what you know, and you almost die, and then you're in recovery today. We don't want you to die.
Yeah.
I mean, is anything changing in your thinking or anything?
A lot has changed in my thinking. I know I had that grace period after the incident. It's like, when the incident happened, I was actually able, the officer showed me the chest camera footage. And to see that as third person, to see yourself, laid out, that was a big wake up call for me. That made a drastic change. Really haven't had so many cravings now, but they're slowly creeping up on me. And it's, I need to start doing some more work. And I know once I came out swinging, but I mean, it started to slow down a little bit. I'm trying to pick it back up again.
Well, Peyton, let me say this to you as well. Today, you have no idea what is in the drug you buy.
No, absolutely
Everything
not.
is laced with fentanyl, carfentanil, and it's not like you're going and buying something that's been packaged properly and what have you.
Exactly.
And so when that craving hits, if you don't do anything but think about, I don't even know what I'm getting here, that might help.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there listening to you two guys, and Braxton, Steve's gone. You can't talk to him no more. But if there's anything you could say to him, maybe you could say it to Peyton here. You know what I mean? Because you got family that loves you and cares about you, right? I mean, here's a man on my left who now the rest of his life, he's got to deal with the loss of his son. But Paxton's got a heart of a warrior. He wants to help people. He wants to carry that message of hope to families and the addicts and people in general.
So often I hear from the addict when they relapse, okay, well, life just got real tough and I was just having a hard time struggling. I think you mentioned that earlier. This man, 38 years, almost 39 years clean. I know others that are 30 plus years clean that I've met along the way. It's very possible. Life is stressful. Life is tough. Relationships create stress. So for you, my opinion is for you, don't worry about relationships. And what I used to tell the guys in jail when I would go and talk to them in jail, what's the first thing you want to do when you get out of here? Oh, I'm going to see my family. I'm going to see my kids. And I need to find a job. Oh, whoa, you got to slow down. Just slow down. That's not the first thing you do. The first thing you do is go to a meeting. And then you keep going to meetings and you build a support group. And the response to that was, well, I've got to pay the bills for the kids. I've got to pay for the wife, blah, 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 blah. But that's a bunch of horse as far as I'm concerned, because you're not paying them anything while you're here. So just continue this program until you really get your feet on the ground. Honesty down here, that's what she did. And she's got what, John, 13, 14 years?
She got a bunch, man. I lost count. She got so many years, man.
So you've got to think, you've got to put yourself absolutely number one, and you've got to keep yourself number one. Because you can't help anybody else when you're in a Food Line parking lot.
Exactly.
I'm thinking, every single day we're getting word on somebody overdosing, and many of them are dying. And I know fentanyl is a very powerful drug, and once you get addicted to it, it's really hard to get the dragging off the brain, But somewhere it's like, man, like it's getting worse, The epidemic is making things worse. The COVID epidemic is making things worse. The abundance and the cheapness of the fentanyl is making it worse. But the beast is out the bag, man. But America has a major opiate problem, and it was all spurred by the pharmaceutical companies. And we had the opiate addiction at a manageable level for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And then those pharma companies started pumping America full of these pills, and that got the genie out the bottle, so to speak. It's going to be hard getting it back.
Oh, yeah. I know I was a part of what my group is pretty much called the Oxycontin generation. I was in high school when Purdue Pharma had put out all the Oxy, and it was, that was just a normal occurrence in everyday school life for me when I was coming up.
But the thing about Oxy, at least it was factory made. You knew what you had. Exactly. And yes, people were dying and more people were being addicted. And then they take that off of there. But like I say, the Pandora's box was open. The opiate addiction was on fire, getting worse. Mm-hmm. And we're surrounded by just people who lost children and parents and family members, and it just is not getting better. I mean, we can have all the recovery supports in the world, but it still boils down to the individual. You know, it's still your call, so to speak.
And don't think a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road that I've licked this thing, okay? That's the worst thing you can do. If John today, with 39 years clean, thinks he's licked it and he's cured and all that good stuff, then he decides to go out and smoke a joint or take a drink or whatever the case may be.
One too many, 1,000 never enough for me, man. I ain't tempting fate, man.
So you just have
Alex, why you keep fiddling with everything? We were fine there, man.
Todd's saying that some of the levels are off a little bit. So
Todd's in South
y'all just
Carolina,
keep
man. If
keep
he really
rolling.
wanted to be involved, he'd have been here.
Todd's here in spirit.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
looking over your shoulder right now.
Well, you know, as you were saying though, I mean, you know, we're almost like in a befuddled situation here. And now I do know what works and what doesn't work. I mean, Braxton, what do you see that's really working? And you've been around this space long enough now. What do you like about what you see that actually works and helps these kids?
Well, I don't think I think there's no question the peer-to-peer program is the way to go. You're working with people who have the same problems and you're strict for each other. That's what I need to get across to families is that it's for the rest of their life. And I remember getting angry one time at an FA meeting, and it was because I was at the FA meeting. And it was like, why should I have to waste my time to come to this meeting? Well, when I found out, I had to be as addicted to something as my son was. And Families Anonymous was my addiction because I found people like me.
Well, parents are addicted to trying to help their
That's
children and
right.
save
That's
their
right.
children.
And
They're not giving up.
You don't have enough money. No family has enough money for an addiction problem. You will give it all away. You'll lose your retirement. You'll lose your home. I've seen this happen time and time again. The best thing from that point of view is what I learned to do was say no. Hardest thing I ever did. The first time I said no, it got easier and easier and easier. And he understood I wasn't going to support him anymore. He was college educated, had a great job, lost everything. Well, material things are all replaceable.
Absolutely.
Every single one were replaceable.
You know, here you are, Peyton, you listen to a parent, you got parents. I mean, you know, I often wonder these individuals, and I don't forget that I was one of those individuals, but I didn't, you know, my parents, when I was hitting bottom, I was 6,000 miles away from my family.
Yeah,
So they couldn't see how bad I got. They certainly couldn't help me. They couldn't invest any money in it.
I was in that same scenario.
Yeah, well, being in this space now, watching what families go through, and the kids, they let their families do it. Their disease does not care. Their disease will drain a family in a heartbeat. And somewhere the kids got to connect to the mind and what they're doing to the family. Have you ever thought about
Oh,
that?
absolutely. My last days out west, it was like it all came and hit me at one time. I mean, I know, like you were saying with the saying no, like I could see that in my mother, like absolutely, like she just one day was like no, and as you said, it just seemed to get easier for her. And it's like the more distant she got, it's like the slower or more it settled on about how much damage I'd truly done with my relationship with my family.
Well, like I tell every one of them, your family never stops loving you.
No, they never did.
Okay, they stopped loving who you became. Okay, so what I wanted was my son to be back to the way I raised him.
Yeah.
And he was a good kid. He was a good heart. He'd do anything in the world for you. John knew him.
Mhm.
But when he was on his addiction, he didn't care about anything but the next fix.
Yep, I felt the same way.
So that's when it became easier understanding that, and that's where the education comes in for the parents. Understanding that, it became easy for me to say no. I told my son one time on the telephone, I was going to meet him in North Carolina because he couldn't drive in Virginia. He had to come here for a ticket, an accident he had. I was going to drive to Danville, Virginia, which is the line of North Carolina, meet him, bring him here, get him through a court program, and take him back. That was insane.
Yeah.
To think that. If you think about that, I'm going to drive a total of 600 miles. I'm going to make sure he gets to a class. I'm going to make sure he gets to court. I'm going to feed him. I'm going to house him. What did that cost? And I'm not talking just financial. Emotionally, what that did to us. We had to make sure everything in the house was just right, so we couldn't find anything.
Mhm.
You know, it was just an awful thing. So it became easy for me to say no. once I learned what I had to do. That was hard.
Yeah, my family did the absolute exact same thing.
Let's switch gears here for a minute. Let me ask both you guys, how do you think society is handling our addiction epidemic, our overdose epidemic?
To me, society doesn't understand it because they don't get involved in it. They don't want to know. It's just going to go away. It's going to go away.
Yeah, if you ignore it long enough, it's gone, but that's not the case in this
That's not
situation.
the case. And I think that the biggest problem I think we have, and I don't want to get off on a tangent of politics, but the government is doing nothing to assist us, nothing. And we need their help.
Yeah.
Just like the pandemic that we had.
Well, the government gonna say they're doing a lot. I
They
mean,
ain't
you got
doing
all these billions of dollars going out the door. They're going to all these states for all these government programs.
How much are you getting, John?
Well, that's an hour-long discussion for another time.
Right.
I mean, we cracked the code in some way. We are finally getting a trickle of some reimbursements, but it's too little, almost too late.
Well, the
But that
problem
don't
is-
mean they can't step it up.
No, but the problem is they have their departments that they think are going to handle this stuff. The problem is they work 8 to 5, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. They're not out there at night. They're not out there on the weekends. They're not out
Well,
there
public
on holidays.
safety folks are, but that's still not a
They're not,
recovery
they're not
solution.
solving the
Yeah.
problem though.
You know, I gotta, it always, it's sad, but the same government agencies that were supposed to be protecting us, watching us from people like Purdue Farmer and the auction makers.
Right.
They're the same mentality and mindset in charge of funding that's supposed to cure the problem. And, you know, I was just asking you guys really what y'all see taking place. How about you, Paige? What do you think?
I know the way Virginia is handling for what I've grown up here and the way that I saw things out west, they're two polar opposites. When I was out west, they actually decriminalized all drugs, and opposed to, arresting these people and putting them through the system, they were forcing them to get help. They weren't throwing them in jail, and I wasn't there long enough to see if it was working. I don't know how it is working, but I know, Virginia's the complete opposite.
Different mindset.
Absolutely.
Well, Oregon
Yeah.
just decriminalized drugs.
Yeah, that's where I was near Portland.
I mean, it's still illegal to sell it,
Mhm.
but if you can have user amounts, you
Exactly.
probably get help. Well, I think, hey, for action, you were on to something there. I think the government really wants to help and do well. What I see as the biggest problem is the bureaucracy that's almost like you have to fight bureaucratic supremacy. You just can't do it. It's a losing battle. These guys think they know everything.
Well, don't they?
I mean,
No, they don't, and their agencies are not doing what needs to be done. As far as the help, to my knowledge, they don't sit down with people like me, people like you. I mean, really sit down and talk to us.
well, they do a lot of focus groups, but I'd almost swear these focus groups don't produce the action that we need them to produce. That's what I see happening.
Everything I've ever looked at was the people on the focus groups, the people on the committees, it was mostly uneducated people that didn't have the problem in their family or thought they did. Okay? And the truth of the matter is, they all know addicts. Everybody knows an addict. You may not know you know one, but you know one. Okay? And they need more people who've been through what I've been through and what you guys have been through to understand that we not just need us coming and volunteering our time and trying to support the McShin and other foundations out there. We need some financial help to do this. How much does it cost for a person to be in jail?
Well, it's
Yeah.
very expensive. Braxton, you're talking about non-government organizations, NGOs. And the way I calculate it, 50% of the recovery outcomes, NGOs are a big part or a small part, but they're still a part of over half the outcomes. And that's where I see funding should go to,
Right.
Don't get me wrong, that other 50% of the outcomes, when you combine treatment, outpatient programs, Suboxone clinics, drug courts, jail programs, pretrial, community corrections, and when you put all those other agencies together, yeah, they're getting 50%, outcome, but it seems like the NGOs are producing half the outcomes too, but yet they're the last ones to really get valued.
But they don't have the resources coming from.
That's
the
true.
government.
If we had the resources they had, I think it'd be like a 80% outcome would come from the
You got it.
NGOs.
That's it.
and 20% from the other.
I think you're right.
So back to you, Peyton, though. I mean, you're still new. You may or may not make it. Who knows? I want you to make it. I'm pulling for you. We're doing all we can for
I
you.
want the best.
Yeah. Well, what at this juncture in your recovery do you think would help you, would keep you from, relapsing?
I know the greatest thing that I've realized that has begun to help me is creating a network. I've started to, actually start to be around people more that want the same thing I want. If I were back home, I'd be stomping around with the same people and doing the same things, and it'd be, a ticking time bomb. Being so close to the church and, being able to just come in here when I'm not doing anything and build that network and grow relationships.
It's nice to have a recovery center at your
It's amazing,
fingertips
right there.
that's staffed and the connection to recovery
Absolutely.
community. Mark up there, he's asking, how do you find a sponsor? That's a good question. It's a sponsor for what? I mean, if you're talking about a recovery sponsor, go to where recovery people are, whether it be a 12-step program for alcohol or drugs or for family members. I'm assuming that's what you're asking about, but sponsors usually don't find you. You got to find them.
Exactly.
That's why they say get a sponsor. They don't say get got by.
That's
a
what they were
sponsor.
saying in the intensive program. It's like, I don't care if you don't know the guy. You need to go shake your hand and be like, I like what you have, after you hear him speaking to me. You need at least
You got a sponsor?
I'm working on it. I'm talking.
You ain't got one yet?
Not
You
yet.
got a drug dealer, right? But you ain't got a sponsor?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That is messed up, man. You better hurry up and get a sponsor, man. What about FA, Braxton? They get sponsors in Family Anonymous, or do you see much of that?
No, I really don't see sponsors. The way it generally works in the groups that I've been involved in, we have a sign-in sheet, first name only, and we put our cell phone numbers, assuming we're willing to accept phone calls.
Right.
And then we encourage everyone to take pictures of that list at the end of the meeting. And anyone that you felt comfortable with during the course of the meeting, if you run into a crisis during the week, call that person. All of us are willing to talk to you. And I've had calls where I may have to call you back, okay? But I've had calls where I've talked to people for 2 hours on the phone. And I tell them in my mind, what I think they need to do. Now, the question is, are they going to do it? And newcomers tend to.
Before COVID, I noticed when we had our family meeting every week, we'd have 20, 30 family members show up. But that was a very tight group, man. Those people remind me of a good old fashioned,
Absolutely.
12-step group, man. I mean, but I imagine COVID has hurt the Family Anonymous group.
It's hurt tremendously now. There's one group in Richmond that I understand is doing it through, I don't know, I'm not a technology guy, but Zoom or
Right.
that type of thing. And they've actually picked up and gained people that have a hard time even getting to the
Right.
location.
Yeah, people that have social anxiety and stuff like that, they can, cut their screen off and they can just sit back and watch. It's
Well,
great.
but a lot of family members are elderly people
Oh,
too. And
absolutely.
if you can figure out the social media, you got it made. You can sit in your house and do your Zoom family meetings and whatnot. But still, nothing like that eye to eye, physical connection, the hug and the handshake.
That's right.
I mean, I think that's one reason we see the impact of addiction so great right now. We've lost that personal connection and whatnot.
Yeah.
You know how lucky you are to be in an agency that still has that personal connection.
Oh, I know. It's amazing. Because I know I talked to a couple and so a lot of places that have just shut down. It's impossible to do anything.
Yeah, I feel real good about the way McShin's been able to stay in the game like that.
You've all done amazing.
365 days, that drug deal ain't going nowhere.
No.
They learned to mask up, but they still dealing, you know what I mean? That's probably a good time for them.
I would guess.
Less identification of dealers, He had a mask on. How do I know who he was? So Braxton, what are you thinking, man? What's going on?
I'm a believer that if you're an addict, jail is not where you need to be. The cost, and this is where, to me, instead of putting you in jail, let's find a program like this that we're going to put you, and the dollars, a portion of those dollars that we would have spent for you to be in jail can go to the institution like a McShin. And then it's up to McShin to be able to report back how the individual's done.
We're slowly figuring things out. From what I'm seeing, but it's a very, very slow figure out. When I say we're figuring it out, but if you look at if you put a scale up of all the addicts that need help, right off the top, the ones that are asking for help, when you help them, when they ask for help, you just eliminated 75% of future problems. So is because we don't have a system designed to catch people when they ask for help. That means these people got to go further down. So by the time they get caught, they in a criminal justice public safety problem. And that's where the strong arm of the law comes down. And to go to jail, it's not a very compassionate recovery environment.
Yeah.
So I think we're slowly learning that if you create these jail and prison programs while you're there, humanize that experience for those that want recovery while they're there, give them the hope shot, give them a vision of what their life could look like, but also give them that pathway forward. So when they get out, they can transition straight into recovering community, workforce development, and all that system. And if we were to do that, I think that's what we need to go as quick as possible. But back to you, Paxton, some people, they're not going to stop no matter what. They need to be locked up. They need to, but when they lock them up because they need to be, detox them properly. Don't give them that cold cell and no detox, and then make sure in that entrance engagement, if they want recovery, have a recovery system inside set up so you can maximize the outcome of locking these people up. And then few of those people will return if they got the reentry stuff in order and the recovery connection. So a recovering person at every step an addict is, I think that's key. But you got to appropriately fund it and have the appropriate services when they need it, you know. So you're right. I think we do need jail, we do need drug court, we do need these things, but we don't need them at the level we need them, and they can be retooled to be more humanized to get a better outcome.
Well, then they need us to help them with their program.
Absolutely, and that's the big divide. You know what I mean? All these agencies, they're still siloed. They say they don't want to operate in silos, but they still do. And that's, you know, the funding and the policy goes for the silos. So if you can integrate these policies and funding streams in silos and create a better, more efficient system of care, the outcome, well, we can cut addiction impact by 50%. And in this country, it's ridiculous that we don't. And nobody wants to hurry up and get there. You know what I mean? It's like here we are with a typewriter and everybody's bought into the typewriter, but now we got laptops out there, the internet now. And the people who are making their money on a typewriter don't want to give it up. You know, and it's almost like too bad. You really got to go with what works the best, man. It's what's good for everybody. So
yeah, I mean, I never heard, it's a pod at one of the jails here. I was hearing.
There's recovery pods in jails all across America.
Yeah, I've never experienced that. The jail I had has, you know, hardly, even when they did have programs, we only met, you know, once or twice a month. And it was just like a 30-minute class and you go back.
I can go in any jail or prison in America that doesn't have a recovery program. And within a week, I can have a recovery program up and running. If the institutions would let me do that.
Absolutely.
You know, but they really don't want it. They say they do, but they really don't, because the proof's in the pudding.
Mm-hmm.
If you got a program, you got one. If it's a good one, good for you. If it needs to be improved, well, improve it then. The improvement's out there. Funding's the issue. Go to your funders and ask for the funding for it. If they won't give it to you, explain to them how they're fleecing the taxpayers.
Wow.
Because the taxpayers and the voters, you know, I think they're being fleeced, you know. So it's up to us to speak the truth, you know, go out there and show them the truth, give them the evidence, and don't give up. And that's part of our problem here at McShin. Braxton, you've seen it since you've been here. How many people came in here and got involved and they dropped off and they didn't stay with it and let the next guy handle it? And you've been showing up religiously now. You ain't going nowhere.
Well, I hope to get even more so. I've making some personal decisions in my life that I want to get more involved in. You know, if everybody took the attitude, if I could help one person, it doesn't matter how many hours it takes for me to help that one person to get to recovery, or one family to how to deal with it.
That's what authentic peer support service provider is all about, man. It ain't, you ain't on the clock. It ain't a 50-minute hour. We doing this it's our purpose, it's our passion, and it really gets a good outcome. You know, Peyton, you wouldn't be alive today if it weren't for a peer support provider.
No, absolutely not.
Well, you'd be dead or in jail.
Yeah.
What the hell happened? But now we remind you what's going to happen if you do this again.
Oh yeah, absolutely, every day.
But yet your disease is going to have you doing it again. And what are you going to do to stop that?
Like I said, the biggest help for me that I've found thus far is having that person to call, or having a place to come to where it's all positive energy, opposed to, you know, dwelling myself or isolating myself. That's always been the death of me.
I tell people all the time, look, if you want to get recovery results, hang out with people in recovery that got a lot of cleans out. They know what they're doing. If you do active addiction behavior, you're going to active addiction results. And I tell parents, if you want to get good quality results, hang out with those parents that have been there and done that, and they've gotten results. I mean, it's all about connection, education, but staying with it. Like you stuck by Steve for years. You stayed with that. You stuck by your drug dealer, Peyton, for years. You stuck by that. So you got the skill set to stick by recovery principles. Paxton, you got the skill set to go out there and help other parents, that are going through this stuff.
Peyton, to me, there's three things for an addict, okay? There's recovery, there's jail, or there's death. Now, you've experienced two of those things, okay? You don't want to experience the third one of those things. And I think that if you will, and the other thing I'll say to you in every addict, never, ever, ever, ever forget your past, okay? Don't be ashamed of your past. You have a disease, okay? What you need to do is get involved and help a newcomer, or whatever the case may be. Because if you help somebody, the thrill, the what's the word I'm looking for, the high that you will get from that is unbelievable. And then you're going to want to do it again and again, just like the drug habit. Make the drug be the high of helping someone stay alive and get on the right path.
I preach it all the time. The recovery high is better than the drug high.
Absolutely.
You can only get but so high with drugs. If you drink too much, you go into a blackout. You shoot dope too much, you die. Recovery, there's no limit to the recovery. Make recovery the new epidemic. That's our job. That's our battle cry this year. Make recovery the new epidemic. And same with the family members out there. I mean, it's a powerful illness. The nation is plagued. Our people are brainwashed. The stigma hadn't got much better. We got all these people want to make a difference. What are we doing wrong?
It's interrupting people's lives that are not addicts. And that's part of the problem. They don't want their lifestyle to be changed or interrupted.
Yeah.
I didn't want mine to be. I never had a drag off of a marijuana cigarette. I've never taken the drugs, okay, for fear, if nothing else.
That reminds me of what you just said. People don't want to be interrupted. I saw this little clip on TV about these soldiers. They're in really heated combat and they're fighting these wars. And people back home, they just want to go shopping. You know what I mean? They really weren't tuned into the hardships of the war, the conflict, the families back home. And, things can drag on and on and on. Just look back at our history. Vietnam, we'd probably still be there if people didn't go to the streets and start protesting. So, look at the BLM movement. People get fed up, But I don't never see that happening for addicts or the recovering folks. For some reason we're that suppressed population,
man. It's like, we're pushed aside. It's like, you don't want to see that. With all this other stuff going on, all this pain, it's in our country, and they're just trying to stash it away like that's like the least of our problems.
And it's all stigma related.
It is.
Remember when we were kids, Braxton, they had that TV commercial about litter with the Native American in the canoe with the teardrop coming down his eye. And next thing you know, kids are growing up to love dolphins and whales and don't litter. And we changed the perception of the world. And we need to do that with addiction and recovery.
But this is an ongoing thing. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of desire to do it. Our lives are entirely different. Everybody's 90 miles an hour.
You would think social media would help.
I didn't want to get involved in trouble. I mean, I was just.
You didn't ask for it, did you?
No.
You were a good citizen, mind your own business.
I was a believer that if you are a drug addict, if you use drugs, you are a bad person.
Yeah.
You came from the wrong side of the tracks. I truly believe that.
What did you think of families that had kids that were addicts before, Steve?
Same thing. I can't be around them.
Yeah.
People go think I'm involved in the same thing.
Right. So the very stigma you prescribed to at one time, now you're trying to switch it.
I wouldn't tell anybody for 4 years about my son. Today, I will tell you my entire story standing in the grocery line if you'll listen. And guess what happens? You will then tell me your story and sing that story of mine. It's just unbelievable. We all have the same.
It's almost like, like your story like that, people like you, it's like they know the story, but they're hiding it from themselves. It's like, everybody just needs to come together and be like, this really is a
If I
problem.
talk to your mom and dad right now,
Oh, yeah. You'd have the same story.
oh, I'd hear the same
Absolutely.
thing.
So how big a role you think media plays in this?
I don't think media helps us.
I think
Not at
I think
all.
that's the problem we got. The problem we got now. Media demonized addiction years ago, decades ago.
I still have most of them, John. But every article that's come out on addiction or drugs or anything, I pretty much saved them all. And I would use those when I would talk to people. And I had all of yours. And one day I just got irritated about it and I threw some of them out. I still have many of them. But it's not enough. Then you don't hear the follow-up. You don't hear where they've gone any further with it. It's so sad.
I see some media outlets trying though.
Yeah.
And every now and then, like the Times-Dispatch, they'll run a good positive story maybe every couple weeks, But yet every single day, there's the other side of the media, the death, the destruction, the stigmatization that takes place, and I've seen it over and over and over, my whole life. And there's some news channels out there trying to run some good stories, and every now and then the national network will pick it up. I've seen these late night shows where they had a 1 hour segment on reducing stigma. Then they had a 1 hour segment of Spin Doctor talking about how dirty and trashy and how bad things are.
Yeah.
We need to just let them die and lock them up. And it's like the same outlets can't even get wired together on the same.
No, we can't get to prime time.
Well, all I know is stigma is a big deal. It ain't, that's an area folks really need to work on. We got to educate people. And we've got to learn to love our people, man, and not just, act like they're just going to hell, don't bother, because that's just not the case. Well, anything else you want to talk about?
Not really.
We got the mics working fine now.
Oh, absolutely.
We got good connection to social media right now. I look at you two guys. I look at one guy at risk of dying on any given day. His brain tells him you can do one more and get away with it. I look at the other side of a father who lost a son, and I hope by having you two guys together, we can maybe, just maybe, Peyton, if the thought of using, you can remember this conversation and the man you're looking at and what it's done to him and how his life took a different turn.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like you said, he's got the same story as my family.
Well, you're the newcomer. You're the most important person on this podcast right now. You got grown men with decent brains on this show. I ain't saying the best brains, but it's like we care, we love you, we want to do whatever it takes to keep you in recovery. We're on your team, Team Peyton.
Absolutely.
Braxton, what do you think?
John, I don't know. Like I said, as long as I can take a breath on my own and physically I'm capable, I'm going to do what I can to help all the Peytons out there and all the families of Peytons out there that I could possibly help. For the longest time, I was a workaholic. All I ever did was work. I don't have hobbies called fish. I don't do all that. And I often wondered, what am I going to do when I retire? Because I don't have any hobbies. And
You're a hope dealer. That's your hobby now.
Yeah.
Man. Your family's hope.
So now I had to lose a son to realize what I'm going to do. And so now, I'm trying to get more involved in things. And, the jail program, we did that, and maybe do that even again. I don't know, but it's like it.
Well, I want to remind our listeners that here at McShin, for example, and there's many places like McShin all over the country, our doors are open 7 days a week for not only those that need help, but for family members that need education. They need that first place to go to have a conversation on, here's my problem, what do you think some solutions and options might be? We're an incredible resource outlet, and I just think that's vital, man. Families need to be able to just go somewhere on the spur of the moment, when they got a question, they need to be able to ask somebody that can at least give them some answers. And I'm real proud of McShin and the way we've been able to do that over the last 17 years almost.
Yeah, I've been in other, paid programs and all, and I've nowhere received as much help as I've gotten here. I mean, this whole peer-to-peer thing is like new to me. I mean, I was in rehab with other addicts and all, but it was all like really doctor-oriented counselors, all that. But to be there with people that have actually been there and experienced it and have the same story I have has just been phenomenal.
You know, I also like the fact that my door's open every day I'm here, and these newcomers, they just pile in my office.
Oh, I love it.
Any work I gotta do, I better do it at the house where I come here, because when I get here, it's all recovery conversation, you know, all day long. And they may not like my choice words, but I think I have an exquisite use of the English language, you know.
Well, John, if you take that sign, knock before entering down, it might help.
They
Well,
all knock anyway.
but yeah, well, they don't not only not knock, but the ones that knock stand there. It says knock before enter. Enter implies you may enter once
Exactly.
you knock. I mean, it's almost like I gotta have a peer outside the door explaining the English language. to these
Rules
people.
of John's office.
Yeah. Well, anyways, you know, it's been a nice conversation. I'm glad you both came in today.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know, once again here at McShin, we just try to, you know, put content out there to help folks, you know. So we're glad everybody tuned in today. Any last words, Braxton?
Nope, thank you for the opportunity. I'm available. John knows how to get hold of me. The folks here know how to get hold of me.
Any family member need to talk to a family member, I'll hook you up with Braxton. So maybe your phone will ring. Peyton, last words?
Just thank you for everything you've done for me.
How about, man, just for the day, I ain't gonna use no matter what, man.
Yeah, that'll work.
I don't care if I did get a newcomer girlfriend. I still ain't gonna use her. Yeah, I saw y'all at the smoke shop.
Oh, come on.
Anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed the show, and there'll be more later. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
My name is Shannon Lance. I'm currently here in recovery at McShin Foundation. I got out of jail on January 10th, 2021, and while I was incarcerated there, my mother passed away due to COVID complications on December 14th. It was a really challenging event in my life. While I was incarcerated there, I watched the recovery videos and the podcast on the tablets there, that was made by the McShin Foundation. Getting the Heard podcast really made me feel like I was a part of something on the outside, because, there's people that are commenting and just seeing, people that I was incarcerated with on the videos, and just thinking, man, that's going to be me, before too long. And, I'm going to be sitting there in them rooms and, be able to be a part of the podcast and Getting the Heard series. And, now I'm a part of the Herd here at McShin, and it's an amazing feeling, and it's nice having a fulfilled sense of hope in my life currently, and just to live one day at a time, and just to have positive feelings in my life and good relationships with my family and friends is an amazing event.